So we are in the backyard of Monette and Greg's house here in the beautiful Lafayette, and I've been working the last few days on building this oven, this Adobe wood-fired oven. So I thought I'd show you just kind of where we're at. So we have the basin, we got the floor, we got about 8 inches of insulation for the floor. Insulation was perlite and lava rock and some empty glass bottles. And then we have these fire bricks. I have this arch for the door. There's bricks in here, and I put the cob mix over. The cob is just sand, clay, and straw, right? And so now I'm working on the hearth, the dome. So I'm using fire brick. Another way of doing this is to do a cob oven. Is you'd make a sand mold, and then get your sand, clay, straw mix, put that over the sand mold, let that dry, and then take out the sand mold. And it takes a long time for it to cure. And so I found that it's preferable for me to use fire brick, right? So use fire brick, cut them in half. I use my tile saw, cut them in half, and then hit it with a hammer to break them in half. And so I'm using these to form our dome. So I made this mortar. So this is our mortar mix to have it stick to the dome. I made it very sticky. I added some just pure clay to it, so it's about probably 50% sand, 50% clay, and so it's very sticky, and so that keeps the bricks from, falling in when you get to the upside down part of the dome. So I'll show you how I'm doing this here. So I'm using this compass string line, so you can see the string here. So I have a little ball here at 16 inches. So we want the height of the dome to be 16 inches high, and the inside of the hearth is 32 inches across, right? And so 16 is half of 32, right? So I have the compass string line attached to the center, and so I'm setting these bricks so that the top of the brick is at the ball, okay? And so I'm doing that, and as long as the insides of the bricks are touching really snug, then they can't fall in. And then to kind of support it so that it's kind of pivoted up, I'm putting these little chunks of little rocks kind of in here, just to kind of create that tilt. So I'll just show you here, so this process. So I put the mortar on first. And then I take a brick, and you see we're staggering it, so we have a half brick here, full brick here. So this one here is going to be a full brick. Actually, I'm going to have this go on this side. I twist it in. I take this string line, make sure that it lines up. It does perfect. I take my little wedge here and stick that in that space. And then get that where it needs to be, and then I proceed. And so I take this, squish it in as much as I can, make it match to the string line, and then put my little wedge in. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that around, and then I'm putting the cob mix on the insides too, so it's gonna be nice and smooth on the inside, okay? And then we'll go ahead and I'll be putting the cob mix over this, and then tomorrow I'm going to be insulating the oven. So you see that there's this space, like a good 4 or 5 inches of ledge here, and so the insulation will be going over this, right? So the insulation will also be the perlite and the lava rock and just a little bit of clay. And then we'll put an outer layer cob on, and then just let it sit and dry. And we can go ahead and get a fire going in there too to help dry it out. Okay, cool, thanks. So we are now ready to insulate our oven. So first I got some burlap, burlap, and dip this in a clay slip. I made kind of a clay milkshake, and dip this into the clay, and then put this over the oven, and so that's to help to prevent cracking. So there's, there'll be 800-degree fire in there, and so the burlap helps to kind of slow down the cracking. So did that, and now I'm putting the insulation mix on. So the insulation also is I got clay. I used this mortar clay, this bag of clay. So it's just pure clay, no sand in it. So I used about 1.5 bags and about 1.5 bags of perlite. So perlite is this white fluffy material. And mix that together in the hoe in my mud box. So this is the mixture here. It's very lightweight, fluffy, a lot of air in it, and but it still forms together into a ball. And so I'm putting this on about 4 inches or so over the thermal mass dome, and the idea behind this is it's to retain the heat in the oven, right? So the heat won't go through the airy insulation, right? And so I'll be putting this over the whole oven, and then doing another layer of about 1 inch of cob then over that, and then letting that sit, and then we'll let it sit for like maybe a couple weeks. We got some fires going in the oven to help cure it out, and then we'll plaster it and seal it and start cooking some pizzas. So I'll show you kind of how this is going on here. So form into a ball, and then pat it on there. Alright, so that's the idea. Cool. Alright, so we have been letting this oven dry out now for the last couple weeks. So it's nice and dry. And so I put some burlap over it, some burlap dipped in a clay slip over the whole oven to help slow down any cracking that might happen. And so now we are ready to plaster it. We're ready to do the earthen plaster, okay? So what this plaster is made of is earth, right? I got from actually San Rafael. This is some nice brown colored earth I got from the ground. And I added some sand to it. I added this coarse sand. It's actually called Ole 2 sand is the name of the sand, Ole 2. And so it's 70 parts sand, 30% clay, and then I added some kind of nice oxide, some nice tan, kind of light brown iron oxide to give it a nice color. And I added a little bit of flour paste. I made some flour paste. This was flour and water kind of mixed together, and that just helps to strengthen the plaster. And I added just a little bit of linseed oil, just maybe about half of a cup of linseed oil, just to help kind of bind the clay and the sand together. And yeah, and then chopped straw. So I got some straw and mixed it. I kind of chopped it up in little pieces with a weed whacker over here, and so it's now like small little fiber pieces, and that gives it tensile strength, and it helps to keep the outside plaster from cracking and everything. So we're gonna go ahead and plaster this oven. And so I will show you the process now of plastering. It's actually very exciting. So what we do is first we take a handful here, and we just go ahead and put it on. It's going to go on about a 1/4 of an inch thick, right? So. And and all the rocks in the earth have been sifted out, right? So there's no more rocks than they're like more than a 1/4 inch or anything. Okay. So it goes on like that, and then I get a bucket of water and smooth it out. And then and I can also smooth it out with my trowel too. Right. So I'll do that, and so I'll go ahead and cover the whole oven with this plaster, and then I'll do the final finish smoothing out with the little plastic lid. I'll take this and just kind of go like that to it. But that's once this sets up a little bit. So yeah, so that's the process of doing an earthen plaster over this oven here. So we finished plastering our oven. We did a nice earthen plaster. So I went ahead and smoothed it all out. So I used this little hummus lid to smooth it out. So I dipped this little plastic lid in water, and then I just kind of smooth it out. It's actually really satisfying to do. And so actually now is a good time to be doing this. So a few hours after you plaster, then you can really press in and you know, give it some good pressure and get it really nice and smooth. So went ahead and got the plaster on the underside. Okay, so now we just made our door. So the door has metal on the inside, sheet metal on the inside, and so this goes right in there. So we've got this opening here, so you can actually still have a fire in there and still get some oxygen in the fire, and so that works great. And then we have our tools. We have our pizza brush, wire brush for pushing the coals to the back. We have our metal peel for taking our pizza out of the oven. And so now it's ready to use. The oven can be fired up. We can be cooking pizzas. And I guess next week we're going to have a little pizza party. So we still need to let this dry. We're going to let it all dry so it'll all be this color. And then we'll be sealing it with a few coats of linseed oil. So then it should be fine to be rained on. All right, cool.